welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we are back with NHL action. We are getting to watch NHL games again. You actually went to one, the Sharks versus the Flames the other night, and it's obviously not quite the same as the Four Nations, but it is also very nice to have NHL hockey games to watch again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit of an adjustment going from the high pace of the Four Nations back down to regular season NHL games, but the action's starting to pick back up. We've already had, a couple milestones set yesterday or Saturday, but one of the two. We've already got a little bit of stuff to talk about here as regular season's back in play, and we're gearing up for the trade deadline in 10 days.
Yeah,
11 days, something like that.
Sometime in the next
coming up
2
soon.
weeks. And there's a lot of rumors heating up that we'll get to a couple of those as well. But like you mentioned, there were some milestones hit, so we'll get to some of those first. This one, I believe, happened over the Four Nations break. Cal O'Reilly played in his 1,000th game in the AHL. He's only the 9th player to do so, which I guess makes sense because if you're good enough to play in the AHL but not the NHL, a lot of guys might end up going to Europe or falling out of hockey, and a lot of the guys who play a lot in the AHL will eventually make the NHL. And Cal O'Reilly has also played in 145 NHL games, so he's carved out a real nice career for a guy who hasn't consistently stayed in the NHL.
Yeah, he's an AHL journeyman, and you don't see many of those ever. So yeah, congrats to Cal on, again, something only 9 players have accomplished.
And some more shout outs we have 3 guys who on the same day, I believe, hit 500 career points. Teuvo Teravainen with the Blackhawks scored a power play goal and hit 500 career points. And Andre Palat and Dougie Hamilton. This one was actually really interesting because they both hit this milestone on for 500 points each on the same, not just the same game, but the same goal. The last time that 2 players hit that milestone in the same game was Chris Drury and Scott Gomez, February 1st, 2008. This is the very first time in NHL history that 2 players have had it happen on the same goal, though.
Who gets the puck, do you think? Do you think they cut it in half, or
probably just cut it in half? That'd
just
be
slice
cool.
it right down the middle? Each get a half, and
might as well.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, you know what? That makes it a little more memorable than makes it stand out compared to the rest of the pucks they probably keep.
Yeah. Make a cool little trophy or something out of it with only half the puck. I like that idea. I think that's what they should do. I don't know what they did, but that's what I vote. But again, my vote doesn't matter to New Jersey. So
no, it does not.
Speaking of a guy who's got awards and a bunch of pucks, probably.
Are Ovechkin. You talking about Ovechkin? I was looking at the one right below it. A guy who very few people have more accolades than Alexander Ovechkin. Scored a hat trick, his 32nd of his career against the Oilers. He is 13 goals away from, I believe, tying Wayne Gretzky's record.
And I believe it was his the empty net goal, his hat trick goal, was his 200th goal of the 2020s. Which made Ovechkin the first player in NHL history to score 200 plus goals in 3 different decades, which is
pretty nuts.
Is pretty incredible. That he's able to do so. I'm probably going to be we're not going to see anyone I don't think do that anytime soon.
I guess how many goals did Austin Matthews have in the 2010s is the big question.
I don't think he hit 200.
Because and it's kind of crazy that Ovechkin did that, because he got into the NHL like they had the 04-05 lockout. So his first year was like the 05-06 season. And so like
Yeah.
he only had half a decade to put up 200 goals at the start there. And then obviously 2010s and up until now. So he came in with not a ton of time to be able to do it.
Yeah, Matthews didn't in the 2010s. So.
Yeah, that's that I mean, I guess Crosby probably just has to hit 200 in this decade. I got to imagine he had 200 in the same 2 decades that Ovechkin did before. He's really one of the only other guys that feels like he would be able to do it anytime soon. Like some of the guys that are playing right now probably could, but we have to wait till they get into their third decade.
Crosby. Let's see here. I don't think Crosby. No, Crosby didn't even in the 2010s or the 2000s.
Really?
Yeah.
Like obviously he's more of a playmaker, but damn, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, didn't probably tough to tell because I don't have the exact number. I'm just kind of going it as year by year stats.
Yeah.
But going into the 2009-2010 season, he was at 132. And in the 2009-2010 season, he put up 51 goals. That was actually his career high. His only 50 goal season. And I don't know how many of those was scored before it turned over to 2010. We'll say 20.
Yeah.
22.
20, yeah, 20 some.
So that puts him up to around 150.
Yeah, so it's still 50 short. Yeah,
I mean, goes to show what a machine Ovechkin is, and a guy that honestly probably, if he doesn't get injured, he's probably winning the Rocket this year.
Oh,
if he didn't get injured, he might have already broken the record.
Well, probably not. How many games was he injured for? Like 11?
No, look at the pace he's on right now.
Well, it's possible, but
right
he would have had to score over a goal per game in those games. Like it possible if he gets a couple,
we're
2
talking
goal
about
hat tricks, but
Ovechkin though.
Yeah, but on the season he's not scoring at that pace.
The Caps, how many games have they played? They've played 57. Ovi missed 16 games.
He missed 16. So 13 and 16. I mean, definitely still pretty tough, but I mean, he's been on a heater, so is the rest of the team.
He would have at least broken it by the trade deadline, a week come Friday, when a lot of people thought he wasn't even going to break it this season. He was going to have to wait till next season. If he didn't get injured, he probably breaks it. He'll break it this season.
Well, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's not something that seems like a slam dunk. Until his hat trick, he wasn't on pace to do it this year. Now I believe he's on pace to do it it's like April 4th or something. So with that, including the hat trick, he's now on pace to get it done this season.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
25 games left on the season. He could easily get 13. All it takes is one more hat trick, and then it's like, you're looking at, and he probably will get one more hat trick, I imagine, this season. The way the Capitals have been playing, like, and just dominating their opponents.
They really want to get him those goals. They want to try and get it to him this season and everything. So
yeah, and the way we've been seeing it this year, and Ovi's still a good defensive player, but anytime they're winning and the opponent pulls their goalie, Ovi's going to be out there, and they're going to be looking to get it to him.
Yeah.
Greatest goal scorer of all time once he sets that record.
Yeah. Most people, there's a lot of people that have been saying it for years. It's really just a formality to get there, but yeah, it's pretty damn hard to argue anybody else at this point.
Yeah, only other guy in my opinion you could argue is Mike Bossy. Like that's the only one. Which I think if Mike Bossy played it was so tough to play the amount of games guys are playing today. Like unless you're like Gordie Howe. Back then, if Mike Bossy had like a full career, I think he only played like 8 or 9 seasons or something. If he played, that 15, 16, 17 seasons like these guys are, I don't think anyone would ever surpass him in career goals.
Yeah, he was
But
a goal
it's so
scoring
tough to
machine.
tell when guys get injured, retire early. Like it's
Lon-
so difficult to say, right?
Longevity is such an important part of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Like, that's I know I eat a lot of shit when I talk about it online, and at some point maybe we'll have a debate about it on here. But I know I've been on the record before saying I don't think Bobby Orr is the greatest defenseman of all time, and a lot of people think that's an insane take, and I definitely get why they think that, because at his height there was never a better defenseman. But if you're going career for career, he like, when did he retire? He was like 28 or something. He's like McDavid's age now when he hung him up because of injuries. And that's not his fault, but that's just the nature of how it went down, right?
Hmm.
For those wondering at home, Connor McDavid had 162 goals in the 2010s, so he did not have 200 in the past decade either.
Yeah, I didn't expect McDavid to.
But we can move on from that, and we can look at some of these other things. I don't know if there's much to say on this. This is a little bit of older news. This is back with the Four Nations. Um, Maybe we'll keep an eye on it if it comes up with stuff. But quite frankly, just for the chirping and for the meme of it, I want to bring it up. But JT Miller saying in an interview that he hated that Matthew Tkachuk was talking about the USA Fighters group chat with the Tkachuk brothers and himself. Man, we've got some really good memes out of that.
Here's the thing, though. Like, I'm kind of on the side of like, and I know a lot of people are starting to gravitate towards that side of being like, yeah, JT Miller has a right to kind of be pissed about that. Like it's one of those things where it's just kind of weird to like. Again,
It
it looks bad on Matthew Tkachuk because he's sitting there bragging like, yeah, we went into this game like texting, planning these fights. It's like, okay, cool. Like what do you want? You want us to think you're cool because you were planning a fight? It's like
yeah, he
it just
also
felt weird, right? Like it was better to just be like, we are amped up, we want to just get it going, but being like you were specifically coming into the game ready to fight off the start. It's like, nah. It's just, yeah, it's a little weird. I get where
and
JT Miller's coming from. It's like when you talk about stuff in group chat, the boys, like it's between the boys. You don't need to be airing it out there, especially something like this when.
oh yeah, I think most people completely agree that out of anyone in the situation, Matthew Tkachuk looks the dumbest for talking about it.
Yeah,
It's just really funny to think about him mauling over this a group chat of all things. Like
yeah,
he just got out of a messy situation with Vancouver, and now he's upset about a group chat with the national team. But yeah, no, Matthew Tkachuk looked really weird, being like, "Yeah, we set up the group chat. We were talking about how we're gonna fight." And then Hagel in his interview made him look even dumber by being like, "Yeah, we just went out there and we fought for our country. We fought for the crest on the front, and we did what we had to." And
yeah.
it's
They
like,
weren't
damn,
fighting for the
that
cameras and to get all the limelight. They were,
yeah, that sounds way cooler. Like,
yeah,
other than we made a little Snapchat group, and we got together and we were kicking our feet in the air, going, "We're gonna fight people."
yeah. It's just
So
weird. But speaking of Matthew Tkachuk, we do know that he is currently still out injured after the Four Nations. Didn't suit up for, hasn't suited up for the Panthers yet. Um, there was rumors that he could potentially be done for the year. It sounds like he will be back at some point,
yeah,
as per Paul Maurice, head coach of the Florida Panthers. We don't exactly know. It sounds like it's a groin injury. They haven't, I don't think, have directly said it, but it's kind of sounded like that's what the nature of his injury is. So,
right.
and with groin injuries, I mean, the timeline is you never know. It's basically until it's healed, right? You look at some guys that deal with a groin injury and they're back in a couple weeks. Or it could be you look at someone like Logan Couture, who played, I think he missed like the first half of the season last year, came in and only played 6 games, and then we haven't seen him since. He's been out for a full calendar year. He's played 6 games in the past season and a half with a little bit more serious of a groin injury, but still a groin injury. So it's so tough to tell with these.
And the team, the medical staff for Team USA in the
Dog
Four
shit.
Nations,
Dog shit.
they're catching a lot of flack because between Charlie McAvoy getting an infection in his shoulder from one of their needles, and them allowing Kachuk to play through this injury that, at least for some time, seems like it might be season ending, like that. And
And
then, of
apparently
course,
it's
on
the
top of that,
Minnesota
Matthews,
Wilds.
Brady Kachuk, they're all dealing with stuff, which could just be by the nature of the hard-hitting Four Nations. But there was also, there was quite a few question marks raised. And yeah, it was
Yeah.
the American team borrowed the Minnesota Wild's medical staff for this. Also,
Yeah.
Kaprizov looked like he was coming back probably at the end of the Four Nations, and as soon as everyone gets back, they're going, "Oh, it might be longer than that." So there's
It sounds like
also
he's
on the
out for
Minnesota
a little
side,
bit more time too.
yeah. So it sounds like on the Minnesota side, they're not doing a fantastic job over there right now. So hopefully they can
Does
pull
that
themselves together a bit.
does that hurt? I'm trying to think of a good way to word this. The way that they've like Minnesota's like medical team, their training staff has handled these type of situations. Does something like that maybe influence Kaprizov when he's looking at maybe re-signing with Minnesota?
I don't think the Kachuk or the McAvoy stuff does. I
No,
think
but I'm
it
talking,
would just be
but
what
like
he deals with.
seeing what they're starting, like seeing what's happening, and seeing what has happened with the staff to other players, and now it's happening to him, and you kind of wonder if it makes him sit there and be like, "Fuck, if I sign here long term, am I in the best hands, right? Like, am I going to be able to have a long, healthy career if these are the guys that are supposed to be taking care of me?" And obviously they still are, but it sounds like they're not really doing the best job. So I wonder if that's something maybe Minnesota has to kind of look at and consider, being like, "Fuck, do we need to get some new people in here that are going to, do things right and properly take care of our guys?" Because again, we've talked about it with Minnesota for so long. Like, like they have a good team, lots of players, but Kaprizov's your guy. That's your franchise. If you lose that, you're back to being middle of the pack team.
Yeah,
You're back to being like, "Oh, you made the playoffs, but you go out in 5 games in the first round. Oh, you missed the playoffs. Well, I'm sure you got a high draft pick." No, we just missed out by 1 point. We got the worst draft pick in the first round of all the teams.
they were
to miss.
middling
Like,
for so long.
you don't want to go back to that spot. So I wonder if that's something that maybe Minnesota looks into, because again, Kaprizov's your franchise. Like that.
Yeah.
That determines whether or not you are going to be contenders for the next 10 years, or you're back to middling out again, and in that one, like the worst spot you could ever be as a sports franchise.
Yeah, completely agree. And we'll see if it matters to him. And maybe they do hire a couple new guys, or maybe it's something they're just keeping an eye on. Maybe not. They don't care at all. Maybe they just think it's circumstance and not their problem. Who knows? But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see if Matthew Tkachuk plays again. Yeah, we clearly saw that he was at least somewhat injured during one of the early games in the tournament. I think it was the first game against Canada. He was like taking skates in between commercial breaks and testing it out, and then he ended up playing a couple more shifts, and I think he played for the Finland game. Did he play against Finland for America, or was Canada his last game? The first Canada game.
Matthew?
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't play against Finland. I think against
Okay.
Finland, I think they went 11 forwards and 6D for that game, if I'm not mistaken. Because you had Kyle Connor out, you had Matthews, you had Kachuk, but then you had Chris Kreider come in.
Right. Oh, did he? I might have been getting him confused. Did he play against Sweden?
Yeah,
I think.
Sweden,
I think
Sweden,
he did. Yeah.
Did you say Finland? Oh, maybe you did.
I think.
No,
I think
yeah, because Sweden was their last game. The game that they lost, yeah, that was the one where they. Yeah, I think they only had 11 forwards. Unless I don't. Yeah, I don't think they could. They could have gone. Well, maybe they could have gone 70. I don't know if they did go 70, but I know they were short of forward
Yeah. Yeah, they had a lot of guys sitting that day.
because Brady Kachuk left that game too, and then it was like, oh shit, now you're down to 10 forwards, and a couple of your forwards were more net negatives for you than positive. So it was really it was a tough position at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, they were having a rough go with it with injuries, and partially because of the medical team, partially just because of the way all their guys played such a physical game. But we'll
Yeah,
keep an eye on if Matthew Kachuk news comes out or if he comes back, and if JT Miller has any new group chats going on.
with how shit the Rangers are, I got to imagine no group chats exist right now.
Yeah, they got pumped the other day by the Sabres, man. First period, 5-0. That
Like
was
Buffalo
brutal.
of all teams.
Yeah, and it wasn't even
Yikes.
fully the goalie. Shesterkin got pulled, but like
Their
Buffalo
whole
in the
team just
first
looked bad.
yeah, in the first period they had like 19 shots in a single period. And again, the Sabres, like that's just brutal on all accounts.
Yeah. But we'll keep trucking along here. Do you want to do a little bit of suspension talk here, I guess? Before
Yeah,
we get
yeah,
into
let's get into
some
those.
extensions, contracts, trades, all that fun stuff. We'll save that. Hit us off with the suspensions here, or suspension and then reduced suspension.
Yeah, so we'll start with the one that's already been handed out, the Ryan Hartman suspension, where he basically Triple H style pedigreed Tim Stützle onto the ice. His 10-game suspension has now officially been reduced down to 8 games. He appealed it, got it reduced to down 2 games. I would have preferred it staying at 10, but I mean, an 8-game suspension is still real hefty, so
Yeah, right. Like
it
it's
still makes sense.
yeah. I see a lot of people getting upset about. It. I'm like, who cares? Like who cares? Like if
I don't love the precedent it sets that no matter what you should always appeal it because they might reduce it.
well, like
I feel like
McDavid didn't, Myers didn't. This is the
yeah,
first time we've seen one reduced in how long? Like it's been a while.
I don't know if
I
it
can't
has
remember the
been.
last time we've seen one get reduced.
I feel
I've
like
always
they
seen guys appealing, and
usually do.
they're always just like no. They just uphold because at the end of the day, most suspensions, because like this is the longest one we've seen in quite a bit. Like most
Yeah.
suspensions are kind of in that like that 3 game mark, that 4, that 5, and by the time the guys even appeal it and there's a ruling, their suspension's already been served. It basically just comes down
Yeah.
to they're just trying to get some money back that they lost.
Yeah. And I think that's why most of those guys don't often appeal it, but pretty much anyone who ever gets a 5 or more always seems to appeal it, and usually it does get reduced a couple of games. And I
Not
do kind of
many,
wish
not many get reduced though. Like
I kind of
it
felt like
doesn't
most of them
happen
do.
very often. No, it doesn't happen very often.
I'd love to see a list of the ones that have been appealed. I don't know if that's something that would easily be accessible online, but uh,
We might have to look into it, but I'm pretty sure like not many do. Most of them usually get upheld
interesting. I kind of
because
thought it
again,
was the
you
other
do
way
have to
around,
bring like
but
a decent argument to the table of like you know it's an unfair suspension type of thing, right? Like you
yeah,
actually have to have proper reasoning. Like it sounds like Ryan Hartman and his group, their biggest argument was his previous suspension was a 1 game. Now he does have a bit of a history, but they were kind of saying like, and he owned up to what he did. He was very apparently vocal in it on that he purposely put his like arm on the back of Stutzel, but he necessarily didn't mean to like drive him down. But he's like, the motion that I made in the position I put him in, it was intentional. It's just unfortunate the way it went. And then their other argument was, to go from a 1 game suspension all the way up to a 10, they thought was pretty egregious. And Gary Bettman was like, okay, yeah, fair. We'll bump it down to 8, which again, 8 games is still pretty hefty. So
yeah,
hopefully
which is the good
it's a
part.
lesson learned at the end of the day. Like that's the biggest thing with suspensions is like learn from what you did and don't do it again.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we'll see if that happens with Ryan Hartman, as he is I think right now the biggest repeat offender in the league.
Uh,
Pretty
he's
sure. It's
he's
got to be
up
up
th-
there.
he's up there. There's
Because
there's
what did he have?
definitely,
Like 6 or something in the last 5 years or something like that?
there's, I
Something
guess, maybe
wild.
maybe guys with official suspensions. I'm thinking like Nick Cousins. I don't know what Trouba's at. Rempe, obviously. I think Rempe and him are probably the two with the biggest recent suspension
Yeah, I'm just talking
history.
about Hartman in terms of like how many suspensions he's had.
Right.
More so. Like Rempe is obviously right up there, but he doesn't have like the same amount. But based on his suspensions, very well could be near the same amount of games.
Yeah. But we'll see Ryan Hartman in approximately 8 games. I don't know how many the Wild have played since his suspension, but
It's got to be getting near the end of his suspension, I think. If it's down to 8 now,
yeah, it's so hard to tell with the 2 week break in the middle.
yeah, it kind of throws everything off. Puts everything in a blender. Weird,
Uh,
man. It's weird.
but for the other suspension, we got Trevor Zegras being suspended 3 games for interference against the Red Wings' Michael Rasmussen. Uh, yeah, just skated past him, just kind of leaned up, was skating pretty fast and threw him and just caught him only the head. Didn't hit any body.
Half of Hartman's suspension has been served. He's only sat 4 games.
Okay, so he's got another
So
4
4
more.
more to go. Yeah.
So yeah, the Zegras suspension, it is definitely more than a hit like this would traditionally get over the past several years, but you know,
The league's setting a precedent now,
they're setting
though.
a precedent. Their suspensions over the past few months have been noticeably longer for just across the board. McDavid and Myers both getting 3 games, and whatever Rempe got earlier this year. I think that one 10 as well or something. Did he
I
get
don't even
like
know.
a?
I've honestly kind of just blocked Rempe out as a player. Like, not to be rude, but like, it's true. I don't even know. I
Yeah,
don't even
like
know anymore with Rempe, man. Like, he's
uh
out there just,
eight
he's
games.
just out there. Okay, so his was 8. So that's fair for Hartman actually then to be bumped down to 8. Even with the Islanders, Saplakov, he as a rookie, this year, he got a 3-game suspension. So the
Yeah,
league
no
is really
history.
kind of setting that precedent. Like, if you're getting suspended, it's probably not a 1 game. You're looking at least 2. Like, that's kind of what they're going with now, and then it just goes up more and more depending on the situation. So, and again, I like that because, like we talked about it holds the players accountable. It holds them accountable for their actions and what they do. And it's like, if you're going to be doing shit like this, just know, a suspension is coming, and it's not just going to be a nice 1 game or something. Like, you're going to be missing multiples, um, and this is what we've wanted for years. So the fact
Yeah.
that we're finally getting it, and I see people complain, I'm like, man, this is what we wanted. Like, and I like that they're going away. Like, obviously, they're still taking into consideration, guys that have a history and whatnot, like we talk about with Hartman and Rempe. But guys who don't have one, it's like, you're still going to get a 3 game. You're going to get a 2. They're going to still throw the book at you just because
You shouldn't get
you
a
haven't
free
done this
dirty hit.
before.
You shouldn't
Exactly.
get one free dirty hit and then you're on the watch list. Like
Yeah.
that's just weird. So I
Yeah.
I
I
will be
completely agree
interesting.
with you on that. Yeah.
I'm very interested to see, because we know it will come up at some point. Maybe not this year, but sometime. Uh, a big nasty hit, vicious hit from behind, a headshot, a something will happen in the playoffs, and I want to know how that suspension is going to compare. Is it going to be like in the past where if it's up to anywhere from 1, 2, or 3 game suspension in the regular season, it will be 1 game in the playoffs? Or are they just going to say, nope, that's a 3 game suspension. Take your lumps. Or is it
No,
is it
I
still going to
think I
be
think they're going to
half? Is it
stick to
going to
what they
be
do. Yeah, I think they're going to still stick to that. Because what was
it's
their
like half
ratio that they went
it's like
two
half
regular
to a
season
third.
to a yeah, it was either like 2 regular season games equals a playoff game, or 3 regular
They
season games
they
equals a playoff
say that
game.
it's 2 regular season games is a playoff game, but that's always rounding down as well, it feels like. Like if it's ever
Mhm.
something for a 5-game suspension, it would be 2 games. Or if it's
Yeah.
3, it's like 1.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that even changes maybe to a 3 is now a 2 or something, but I something tells me this will be a change for the regular season for a while until they decide to
Yeah.
maybe move it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But you know what? I would love to see it because I love me some hard-hitting playoff hockey, but you know, the stuff that the Rempes and the Ryan Hartmans are out there doing, those aren't hockey plays. That's
Yeah.
not a hockey play. That's not hard hitting. That's being a dick. So
It's just intent to injure.
yeah. And if called, I love that stuff. Like if it's called as intent to injure, like, and you really believe that, like, throw the book at him. Like
Yeah.
if the guy got his head down and you made head contact, fine. But if you went in the whole play, like he's sitting there at the face off, ready to drive his head down the whole time, just yeah, absolutely hammer him.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people like specifically, talking about the Zegras hit because this is the most recent suspension, whatnot. A
Right.
lot of people are putting it on Rasmussen, being like, "Well, don't admire your pass. Like, keep your head up. Don't be staring." It's like, okay, yes, like that is the biggest thing you learn in hockey, especially when you get into the levels of hitting. Is like always keep your head on a swivel. Don't admire your pass. Be aware of your surroundings. But that doesn't give other players like, hey, you get a freebie to headshot a guy because he's admiring his pass.
I
Like if it
literally
was a
have the clip
clean
up right now,
like
and
if it was a
like
clean shoulder to chest and he knocked him down, okay, cool, that's fine. But
yeah,
it's not a freebie of like, well, if you're minding your pass, get ready to just get your head knocked off. It's like, no,
yeah,
that's not what it means. Like you should always be protecting yourself, yes, but just because you're in a vulnerable position doesn't mean other guys have the green light to hit you in the head, and there shouldn't be any repercussion. Like there always should be if for hits to the head, and especially again ones like this nature that
yeah.
hitting an unsuspecting player is like, did you have to? I mean, I always like the motto of like finish your check, but
I have two things I want
it was
to.
a weird it was a weird play. It was a weird play though, all
Yeah.
around.
The first thing I want to say is, and I'm like literally got it up, and I'm like looking at a still of right before the hit. Rasmussen makes a pass. He's not looking at all. Zegras has the chance to make an awesome body to body hit. If he doesn't go all head, and if he hits him in the shoulder, Rasmussen's not ready. He gets blown up. He doesn't get injured, and it's probably not a penalty, but he will blow this man up because he's not ready for it. And the guy will get up, fix his helmet, and go, "Fuck, I got to be ready for that shit next time." And it would have made
Yeah,
Zegras look like a beast. But instead, he headshots him. He looks like a weenie. He's got a 3-game suspension. Uh, one thing I want to
and
ask you, and I
there was
don't.
no penalty on the play either. By the way,
Oh God,
this
that's
this this
brutal.
went uncalled.
Um, one thing I want to ask you, and I genuinely don't really know if there is an answer to this or not. Um, is there a penalty or is it suspendable for making blindside hits? Is that a penalty in itself? Like, not a headshot,
It depends on it though,
not
right?
charging him. If the guy's just oblivious and not looking at you, and you make a hard, completely clean shoulder to shoulder or shoulder to chest hit, is that okay?
The biggest thing is, does he have the puck or not?
Yeah, say he has the puck or had it in the last, half second.
No,
Like the only part about this hypothetical hit would be the guy's not paying attention.
no, there's nothing wrong with that.
And
That's fine.
obviously a lot of these big hits are blindsides, but they also include charging, interference,
Hit to
headshots.
the head,
And
yeah.
that's why a lot of people don't like these blindside hits. But like, I don't. It sounds so cursed to say, but like, I really don't mind a big blindside hit as long as it's done in a safe and legal way, right? Like
Mhm.
if you're blindsiding a guy and he's in the danger zone, like that 4 feet from the boards, and you're throwing him in there, that's going to be boarding. If you hit him in the head, you can't do that shit. But if he's just not paying attention, and that just means you can kind of blow him up, I, yeah, that's the part where it's like keep your head up. But
Yeah. Yeah,
he
no,
had it.
I don't think there would be you know, a maybe the refs would find a way to call a penalty. Maybe I'm assuming it'd be something that they would review and then probably be like, no. But like you can't suspend a guy or anything for that, no.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's nothing saying you can't do that. It comes down to the guy needed to keep his head up. If he has the puck, you know someone's coming to hit you. Be aware of your surroundings. Like that's
Yeah. Especially if you
again
just
one of the first things you
had or
learn.
have the puck.
Yeah,
So hopefully Rasmussen's okay. I have not heard if there's an update. I don't. Did he leave the game?
I believe so. I don't know if he came back, but I did see a clip out like after the hit that he did go down the tunnel. I don't know if he returned or not though.
Okay. Well,
There was many
hopefully
games going on during that time, and this was not one I was watching.
3 hours ago, Detroit Red Wings without Michael Rasmussen and Andrew Kopp for the next game apparently. So he's at least missed the rest of that game and is missing the next one. So hopefully Rasmussen's back after that, and hopefully Zegras learns his lesson and doesn't do this again because he's not a guy who makes a lot of hits. So to
Yeah,
make
no,
one this blatantly bad was a bad look.
yeah.
What else do we got here? We got some rumors of an extension here. This is a big one. Uh, Rumors of a Mikko Rantanen extension being offered from the Carolina Hurricanes. A lot of people have been questioning this because almost notoriously, the Carolina Hurricanes have been stingy with their money. They do not want to pay guys a ton, and they don't like handing out big bucks. And they ended up losing Gensel because of it. But they are looking to keep Mikko Rantanen, and they are looking to pay him to do so. Uh, the offer is rumored to be at least $100 million total. We got to assume that's an 8-year deal,
Yeah.
so at least 12.5 mil per year. There's also some light rumors that it's in that 13 to 14 range, closer to the 13 side. I don't know if it's true. And between him just getting traded there and the Four Nations, I don't know how much time he's even spent in Carolina.
Well, so that's the biggest thing with it, right? Is Carolina's in that position where I think it's going to come down to he either signs by the trade deadline or they're going to flip him because they don't want to
Yeah,
run the risk again of you're finally being big players in the trade market. You're going out grabbing the biggest name out there, and then they walk. And if you didn't trade for Gensel last year, okay, yeah, you can probably run the risk. But you can't do it 2 seasons in a row because the guys that are on Carolina are obviously going to say how great it is, how much they love being there. But you don't want a precedent to start getting out there of like, man, all these big stars that and stud players that get traded to Carolina don't want to stay there and leave. Like, what's the problem there? Why do they not want to be there? And that's something Carolina just you can't even risk. And it sounds like Rantanen's unsure if he wants to because, like you said, he got traded there kind of late in January. He only got a couple games to play there in Carolina, and then he was off to the Four Nations, and now he's back, and it's like you've got less than 2 weeks before the trade deadline, so he really hasn't had the time to spend a lot of time in Carolina, get familiar with there, and figure out if he wants to stay there. And so I get that's something Rantanen, his agent, and the Canes are going to kind of have to work through over the coming days of, is he willing to sign there? Is a deal going to get done? Or does Carolina really have to start looking around and seeing, what they can do for a trade? And especially looking at the value of him with the 50% already retained on him. You retain another 50. If you're trading Rantanen somewhere, and for Carolina, yeah, you're a contender, but you do have money. You'd only be retaining two and a bit. So if you're trading Mikko Rantanen, and if you're trading Rantanen, it's probably going to be to a team out west. Because again, you don't, if you're a playoff team with cup aspirations, you don't want to trade him within the East. You're going to send him back out west and be like, go play Colorado now.
How annoying would that be for Colorado?
Yeah,
that would be rough.
So and you're looking at all these contending teams, you can easily you'll find a way to fit Rantanen in at 2 point something, like just a little bit over 2 mil. You can easily make that work.
Oh, yeah.
So a package for Carolina, I think they would get a lot back for that. And then it'd be interesting to see where Rantanen goes. Does he immediately want to sign there? if he goes to, because I've heard some teams that rumored like Dallas could be a rumored team. There's talks that maybe Vancouver would be interested. I'd be curious to see, if Rantanen gets traded, does he sign quickly, or is it one of those ones where like he's kind of set on going to free agency? Like I'm really not too sure, but that's
The
kind of where
only
we're at with it right now, from what we
Yeah,
know.
the only reason I could see him wanting to go to free agency is just to really choose the place. There's specific places he wants to go, and if teams won't trade him there, then he just forces his way there because he will not make more money on a contracted free agency. That eighth year just means so much extra money when the rumored number is at least 12 and a half per year.
Yeah,
You're losing out on 12 and a half to 13 point something mil if you lose that seventh year. Like to get an equal amount of money, to get up to 100 million, it's 12 and a half mil for 8 years. For seven, that's now up to like what? Is that like 15? Is that more than 15? Like
yeah.
it starts getting to crazy cap hits that as good as he is, like I don't think he's getting 14 probably, and he's certainly not making more than 14.
I will say though, there is a chance that like
14.3 he would
there's a
need to get.
chance that we could potentially see Ranton traded 2 more times before July 1st. We could see him be traded at the deadline, go to a contender. We'll just say Dallas, right? Just for fun, because that would be cool.
Sure.
Goes to Dallas, goes on a playoff run, and Dallas is like, hey, and for whatever reason they just can't work out a deal. Whether it's Rantanen doesn't want to sign there, Dallas can't afford him because of all the money they got to pay their other guys and whatnot. Whatever. If Rantanen really wants that 8th year, him and Dallas could sit down and be like, all right, thanks for joining us. Hey, maybe we won a cup. I don't know. Where do you want to go? And then maybe it could be because Carolina kind of did that. They traded Gensel to Tampa, but it was only for his signing rights, right? Like Tampa didn't know for sure that Gensel was going to sign there.
Yeah.
It was Tampa made that move so they had the exclusive rights to be the only team at that time to talk to Gensel. They could sit him down one-on-one, no outside interference, and they managed to work out a deal. But if you were like Dallas, you could tell Rantanen, hey, where do you want to go? And then if he's like, oh, I want to go to Pittsburgh for whatever, so we'll say Pittsburgh. Sure. Then you could sit down and try and work out a deal with Pittsburgh, being like, hey, Rantanen wants to sign, he wants that 8th year. What about a sign and trade? Rantanen signs an 8-year deal, you send him to a team, and then you get a bunch of you get assets back, type of thing. So it's a very curious situation. Like I'm very just curious to see how this whole situation is going to go. Like, if he gets moved out of Carolina, does Carolina get the value back that they gave up for Rantanen? Like, do you get that kind of value back?
Yeah.
Probably. In terms of like a roster player, like the value you lost of Natchez, maybe not. Tough to say.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to tell, but what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to get moved?
I do.
Or do you think
I don't think he's set on signing 8 years in Carolina.
I think it's going to take a little more time, but I do think he's going to end up signing it. I don't think he'll get a better contract elsewhere, and
not in free agency. Not in free agency, no. But
yeah,
and it's so tough because the only reason I think he doesn't is I think he'd be open to it if he stayed there for a while. But I think it's the fact that he really hasn't had much time to spend there, and that kind of pressure of like being like you're on a timeline now. You've got less than 2 weeks to commit 8 years here.
Yeah,
I feel like is a lot, and I just again I think if they didn't have a deal worked out by the deadline and he wasn't traded, yeah, probably at some point throughout the season or after the playoffs, he probably does.
Yeah, I'm
think
thinking
it's just
before the
it's such
deadline
a short.
he does get a deal done. I
So
think.
yeah, I don't.
I think
so.
it's
But
going to take him a
chaos,
bit.
so. And that's Carolina's motto, chaos.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm hoping for is just maximum chaos. And he says, no, I'm not signing. And we have to see another big Rantanen trade.
It would be really interesting to see. I don't remember the last time a guy that caliber was moved so many times. I mean, I guess you could say Gensel because he did get moved at the deadline and then moved in, was it early July 1st? Was it the day? I guess it probably would have been the day before.
Yeah,
But
it was like 2 days before the free agency window opened. Like Tampa Godman had like a day and a half to sign him before the start of free agency.
I think it was actually the day the day before the free agency, or even like really early morning of, because I
It wouldn't be the
remember.
morning of because the players have until like 12 a.m. of July 1st. Like once the clock flips over and it's like 12 a.m. July 1st, you can't sign that 8 years.
Oh, really? You can't? Oh, okay. Yeah,
That's
then it wouldn't have been.
that's how everybody knew that John Tavares was leaving the Islanders because it was like he still hadn't signed. Everybody's waiting, and once it hit that like, I think it's 12. Um, I don't know if it's 12 our time or if it's 12 Eastern. But
Probably
anyways,
Eastern, I would imagine.
everybody was waiting for, is he going to sign it? And all of a sudden it was like boom, midnight, and there wasn't a deal. It was like, all right, he's leaving then because if he's staying with the Islanders, he would have gotten an 8 year. He would have taken that 8 years. So
Right.
so maybe with
And
Gensel,
that's
maybe it was
exactly.
just the day before
Yeah,
free
because
agency
that's why I
then.
remember up until July 1st, I thought Stamkos was going to resign, and
Yeah.
obviously I started knowing that ship had sailed once we acquired uh, the rights to Gensel. But it looks like it did. We did get him on the 30th, which is 2 days before. There's the 30th, 31st, and then
Oh yeah,
July
yeah. So
1st.
they had about a day and a half
Yeah,
to get a deal worked out. So
so
yeah,
might see something similar with Rantanen, but he, man, I
it's a unique situation
if
we haven't seen
if he
in
can find
a long,
anything to
long
love
time.
about Raleigh and North Carolina, he the lowest amount rumored is $100 million. That's a
Yeah,
lot of money, man. I get it. Cap's going up. You're really good. That's a lot of money, man.
it's a lot of
That
dough.
the minimum is he has been rumored to be offered is McDavid's current contract. Like
Yeah,
I I get you definitely, and I think it is an underrated part of signing and trades and all that. That some guys, like, it's not even about the taxes. Some guys, it's not about this or that. It's just you want to live somewhere that you like, and
and
some people just
most likely,
don't
like
like
not a
things.
guarantee. Yeah, and most likely, like it's not a guarantee, but odds are wherever Ranta, assuming he does sign an 8 year deal, whether that's in Carolina, wherever he would get traded to or trade to after that, most likely probably where he spends the rest of his career,
Yeah,
or at least the majority of what's left of his career. Like that's where he's going to be settling down. That's where he's going to be living. It's where his kids are going to grow up. Like it's a big decision, um, especially for a guy at his age and where he's at in his career. Like so it's got to be tough again being in that timeline, being like you've within 2 weeks you've got to make that decision.
yeah,
And then odds are if he's not, he's probably not getting a say in where he's getting traded to. Carolina's just going to take the best offer they can get for him.
yeah,
So like they're not going to sit down and be like, "Hey, you don't want to sign with us, but where do you want to go? Like,
yeah. He's
how
got a
can we
no.
help you out?" They're going to be like, "I don't care. We're sending you whoever gives us the best offer. We're taking it, and
Yeah, he's got a
you
he's
can
got
go
a
play."
9 team no trade list, but that's not a lot of control over 32 teams. So
Yeah, yeah,
he's not going to Buffalo. Probably not any Canadian teams. Maybe Vancouver. Maybe he leaves Edmonton off even, but who knows?
yeah. It's so tough to say, right?
But yeah, I it's interesting. It's nice to see Carolina finally being like, we got to lock this guy down. He's so damn good. Give him the bag. Like they can afford to give him that much money. Maybe if he gets 13 point something, maybe it's a bit of an overpay, but they are saving so much money elsewhere. They've got their captain and third line center who, what, I think he was second in Selke voting last year, making
He was up there.
2.9 for 3 years. Martinook
Yeah,
for only 3. Like they got freaking just so many guys locked in on great deals. Aho and Jarvis both 8 years at 9.75 and 7.4.
yeah.
Svechnikov 5 years at 7.75. Like,
What's Slavin? He just signed an 8 year extension, like six
yeah,
points something, like something just
yeah.
stupid.
It's 6.4 for 9 years. The extension hasn't even kicked in yet.
Yeah, just
Like,
ridiculous. But the contract situations they got there and how good it is.
and it's getting better. Like, obviously they just traded for Taylor Hall in the Rantanen deal, so 6 mil coming off there, 7.75 in Orlov coming off, 5.28 in Burns is coming off, 3.4 in Freddie Anderson's coming off,
Yeah,
2.4 in Jesper Fast is coming off. Dude, like they're clearing up so much money and they've already got their main guys locked in. That's
yeah,
all money for Rantanen.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be an interesting situation. I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out. Well, obviously, more and more rumors are going to keep trickling in regarding this situation and around all teams. Is again, we're on that kind of crazy road up to the trade deadline. Not a lot of time until then, like we said, a week and a half. So
Yeah, I think next episode we're probably going to probably do a lot of talking on rumors for the deadline, things that are picking up steam and where we think people are going to go.
yeah,
Um, but for the
Thursday
rest of this
I'll come to
episode,
the table with a stick 'em up trade board on who I
oh
think
hell
is
yeah,
most likely to get moved, and then we can kind of discuss where they might go, what a return might be. It'll be kind of a trade deadline preview, as I imagine, throughout this weekend upcoming is really when like stuff is going to start to everything's going to start to hit for the trade deadline. Is again last year a lot of the big deals, really kind of aside from the Thomas Hurdle deal, all the big names, all the big players move for the trade deadline happened before the trade deadline day. It was all like a big lead up to a very kind of anticlimactic trade
yeah,
deadline. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we get again. Is teams I've already shown they're trying to get ahead of they want to, if they have the opportunity to go out and grab a guy before there's a bidding war, even if they overpay a bit, they'll do it
yeah.
because they
Nobody
just want
wants
to
to
get
be
a head start on.
last ask to the dance.
Yeah,
They don't want to miss their chance. Um, but we have a couple extensions to talk about here. Oh wow! I just refreshed my page, and actually, we got some breaking news here about a guy
oh
we've
boy.
just talked about. This has nothing to do with hockey, but is fun to look at. Matthew Tkachuk has just been announced. He will be on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon tonight. Looks like
Hmm.
that's pretty fucking good for hockey, man. That's pretty
That's
damn good.
that is yeah.
Like when I mean, God, when was the last time a hockey player was on something like that? Like, I mean, I assume it's
Yeah,
happened
I got
before,
no
but
idea.
yeah, I don't remember. I
Off the top
straight
of my
up
head,
don't remember.
no clue.
I think Crosby was on Leno at some point, like years ago. Gretzky was probably on at some point, but like, yeah,
Yeah,
that that's that's breaking news announced by the Tonight Show 14 minutes ago, but it's pretty cool for hockey. It's going
yeah,
crazy
that's
right now.
sweet. Be curious to see if he's maybe puts a pillow over his groin or something, try and hide that injury. Don't let anyone know exactly what the nature is, but yeah, we'll see. Hit
Um,
us with the Canucks,
yes.
what they've
The
got going on here.
The Canucks, I like one, and the other one I don't dislike, but I dislike the implication. The Canucks signed Drew O'Connor to a 2-year extension at 2.5 mil per year. It's a good, solid depth signing, especially with the cap
I
going
like
up.
it.
That's peanuts. That's real cheap
Yeah, a guy
for a
that could
solid
be
player.
a solid third line player for you. Again, 2.5. What were we just talking about with Carolina, right? Like Jordan Martinook.
Yeah,
If Drew O'Connor can be in Vancouver, what a Jordan Martinook is for Carolina, making that much, that's yeah,
and then
good deal.
we got an extension for Kevin Lankinen in the net. He just got 5 years at 4.5 per year. I I like that deal for both him and the Canucks. Uh, I'm gutted for Thatcher Demko.
See, but here's
Uh,
the thing, though, right? And we talked about before that there was rumors that Demko doesn't want to stay in; he wants out of Vancouver with all
yeah,
the locker room drama and stuff. There was again, it's not confirmed, but there was rumors that he wasn't happy there and he was kind of wanting out. And if that, with this, it's kind of looking like that may be the case.
yeah.
Either that or they're
It's
just not confident in. I don't. I got to imagine it's because Demko, they're going to move him.
maybe, Maybe they move him. Maybe he just
Mm,
goes to free agency. It's hard to tell. I have no idea what
but
his trade value's at.
Demko's signed.
Oh, is
Demko's
he? I thought he
on a
had 1 or 2 years.
contract. No, let me pull it up here. I'm pretty sure he's got some term.
Thatcher Demko. He's got 2 years. 2 years left at 5 mil.
Yeah, so
So
probably moving him. I would imagine
probably then.
it's so tough to say though, right? Because he hasn't played a whole lot this year. When he has, it's been up and down. It's like a roller coaster. Obviously, he's dealing with that injury, and that's an injury that
Currently on
isn't
IR.
going away. Like it's not going away again. Like we talked about, it's one of those weird ones where there's no you can do stuff to kind of help it, but it's an injury he has to just learn to play through.
Yeah, and
And it's tough to say. Is it kind of out there, and the Canucks know that like he's not going to be able to, and they're already solidifying. And again, Lankin has been a great goalie. This is a great contract, well deserved by Lankin based on his play this year.
yeah, 100%.
It's tough to tell if it's like, yeah, does he really want out and they're going to move him, or is it they're not confident in him anymore with this injury?
Yeah,
I
it
don't really
both
know.
both are very plausible, incredibly plausible. It could be a mix of both. I've just always been a big fan of Thatcher Demko, and we're
Hmm.
literally last season he was the second best goalie in the league. He came in second in Vesna voting, and
Yeah.
we've seen more than just flashes of brilliance from him. So uh, I just want him to do well wherever he ends up, and hopefully overcome the injuries that he's had to deal with this year and looks like going forward. I was reading some stuff up on the Vancouver goaltender situation recently, and it looks like whoever they have running their goalie ops, they run a specific style that really kind of puts the goalie in a better spot to make some more saves and gives them better results, but is harder on guys' bodies. It
Hmm.
it it mostly has to do with their leg positioning and the way their hips hold their legs up when they're covering the posts, and a lot of horizontal movement. And it I was thinking about it, and it's very interesting because they've got all these guys that they're past, you know, 5 starter goalies have all been incredibly elite. Thatcher Demko was amazing, and all the guys before that, they had Markstrom and they had Corey Schneider, Roberto Luongo. Like they had a lot of really good goalies over the years. And at the same
Yeah.
time, I don't exactly remember what Corey Schneider's injury was, but you know, Markstrom had a couple injuries here or there. Like they haven't had a clean bill of health for sure. And so I wonder, they get great goaltending out of all those guys. But is it worth it to have to keep moving on from goalies? Or is that something that they're just freak accidents? It's a coincidence, not a cause. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see, hopefully Kevin Lankinen can be healthy throughout this and hopefully his next contract. But I guess we'll see. Maybe Thatcher Demko goes somewhere else and starts putting together a lot of healthy seasons.
Yeah. It's tough to say. Like it's again, there's so much kind of surrounding this situation, and especially Vancouver of all teams, where they've kind of been at the center of the rumor mill for what feels like this entire season. So kind of tough to say. Again, it's kind of one of those situations where we just kind of got to wait until we know more. That's really all we can do.
Yeah, and you know
But good
what?
on Lankinen, though. Like I said,
Oh, absolutely.
great contract, super well deserved. A guy that was, kind of just
Bouncing teams.
Nashville's just like, hey, we don't want you. We're getting rid of you. Basically, he goes to Vancouver, fights for that starting job with Demko out, manages to get it, and he's been terrific this season, all the way to landing himself on Finland's Four Nations when looked like he probably wasn't going to at the start of the season, or at least not. He was going to be the third stringer, and ended up actually playing the majority of the tournament for Finland. So
Yeah,
incredible.
Demko
It
and
was awesome.
Saros are two pretty good goalies to beat out for starter positions on two separate teams. So
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible. Um, the Thatcher Demko situation, it opens up a real nice opportunity for some teams that, you know, if he can't find a team willing to be like, we want to see if you can be the starter for us, then that's going to drive his price down and all that. And some team might get a real gem of maybe you can't be the starter for us, but maybe you can give us a really good tandem. Like I could see him going to, hell, maybe even a team like Carolina,
Carolina was
uh,
what I thought. I
could
think there
could
could be a
him
big
and
blockbuster
Kachetkov,
between them. Yeah.
like that. If you're running that tandem, like we've seen with Boston 1 or 2 years ago when they had 65 wins, like having two elite goalies, neither of them are getting burnt out on all the games. They're both playing about 41. Like that is it. As soon as they put up those really good numbers, if they're not locked in long term, it's hard to keep them, as we saw with Allmark getting moved out. But if you can lock them in and it can work, like it can work real well for those years where you have them both.
Yeah.
But we'll keep an eye on Lankinen and Demko going forward. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about here? I think that's all the news I've got.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. Been a bit of a oh, we got a goalie trade. Breaking news
Yo, we've got a
as
break.
of
Do it.
30 seconds ago.
Wow,
The
fresh.
Detroit Red Wings are trading goaltender Ville Husso to the Anaheim Ducks for future considerations. Um,
Wow,
Kind of
wow.
surprised that again it just came out now, so maybe there'll be more to talk about next later in the week. I got to imagine Detroit maybe had to attach something because like I think Ville Husso's got multiple years on his deal. If I'm correct, I think he's still got like at least one more year on his kind of bad contract, doesn't he?
He is a pending UFA.
Oh, okay,
Um, he making 3.6? Yes, 3.6
3.6.
is his cap hit. He was in the AHL for them. They had Alex Lyon and Cam Talbot on the NHL team. So he's only got 1 year left. He was costing him some money. He, wasn't even getting to play in the NHL. So
So
that's
Detroit's clearing up some money. I'm assuming to make a move.
yeah.
Anaheim is interesting because like is Ville Husso just gonna stay in the AHL because you don't have room to call him up because you've got John Gibson and
I think Gibson's got to be
Lucas
moved now.
Dostal, and that's what I'm thinking. Like, is this finally when Gibson is going to get moved? That's now something else we can keep an eye on here.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, that moves John Gibson to like top 5 on my gonna be traded before the deadline list now. Dostal is
Yeah,
clearly their future. He's been so good. He's 24 years old. They could extend him at any time. They really should get on that. Um, there's no reason to just give free cap relief. So if it truly is for future considerations, they're bringing in another goalie with a heartbeat who can play once it's just Dostal because, Oscar Dansk, good for him, but I don't know if he's an NHL goalie. He's probably getting sent down. Gibson
yeah,
Gibson's got 3 years left at 6.4 mil, and they'll probably retain something on that. He's also got a 10-team no trade list, but I think they're going to move him, and I have no idea what kind of return they'll get for him.
yeah. It's so
Probably
tough to
not
tell.
probably not a ton, at least compared to what they could have got in the past. But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
You you don't want to hold on to him for the next 3 years. You at some point just
You got to
even if you're not
capitalize
getting a
on
huge
value.
return, just
Yeah,
make something happen.
especially because you want to give Dostal a chance. He's obviously your guy. He's ready to be a starter, so
Yeah.
let him be the guy, right?
Yeah, looks like pretty much everyone is saying yeah, everyone seems happy about this deal because all the Ducks fans online are already saying that means we finally getting that Gibson trade we've been looking for, and Red Wings fans that free cap dump. You didn't even have to pay a second to get rid of this guy.
Yeah, they actually managed to dump a contract and not get fleeced in the process somehow.
So,
Um,
pretty good. Pretty good for both sides. I like it, and I'm excited to see what both those teams do now because The Red Wings were the team with the third least amount of cap space going into
Yeah,
the trade deadline.
got a little bit of
Uh,
extra money to play with now.
yeah, that frees up, what was it, 3.6? So we'll keep an eye on that for sure.
But
The
I
eyes are
do
plenty.
believe that does wrap up everything for this episode. Again, later this week on Friday will be kind of a early trade deadline preview. We'll have lots of fun stuff planned for that in the upcoming trade deadline. But if you want to talk hockey, if you want to let us know any of your trade deadline predictions, or maybe what you think will happen with the Mikko Rantanen situation in Carolina, you can do so by going to any of our socials. They're down the links for all of them in every episode across all platforms. Just click on them, come over, talk hockey. TikTok's been buzzing last couple of days, so if you want to join in on the hockey talk there, feel free to do so. But Braden, it is that time where, as always, I must ask you for your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. You know what? I'll give my final thoughts to a guy that we kind of forgot this episode. He also got a contract extension. Vlad Nemesnikov with the Jets. 2 more years, 3 mil cap hit. We're on our way out, but you know what? There's not a lot to say there other than good deal for both sides.
Yeah, great deal for both sides. I think he's been a great fit with Winnipeg, and obviously they have a lot of faith in him to sign to that extension. And
29
yeah,
points in 52 games.
yeah,
Third on the team in
well
plus
deserved,
minus.
very well
Yeah.
deserved. Been a great two-way player for him. So
Yeah.
um,
Squeeze him in there at the end.
yeah, but that will wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, hope you guys all enjoyed. And as always, we will see you guys out on the ice on Friday later this week.